Of course, good afternoon again. I'm Kiara Pesante Haughton. I'm the Vice President of Campaigns of Campaigns and Communications at the National Women's Law Center. Thank you. And it's really so great to see some familiar faces here and some new friends as well. So thank you for joining us today. I wanted to first acknowledge our partner for this event, which actually falls under the sort of the democracy pillar of the Law Center's work, is Woke Vote. Somebody from Woke Vote is here. One person's there. There's another person. I think we'll hear from Dewana later on. Really phenomenal. Of course, sirens as soon as we start, right? Really phenomenal. Ground game organizing, really focused throughout the South, doing really phenomenal work. So there's some QR codes around the room and information about them. Please engage with their work. They're really, really, really fantastic. I also wanted to acknowledge some other special guests we have here with us in the room. Well, first, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my colleagues. If you work at the National Women's Law Center, can you please just give a hand wave? Arvia, Olympia, Lark, who a lot of you met out there. And we even have some people who work here who are here on their own dime just having girls trip, okay? So Bayless and Sudria are sitting over there, two attorneys on our team. I also want to acknowledge Teresa Younger, who we love and adore over at the Ms. Foundation. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal leader. Thank you for joining us, Teresa. So I have been really looking forward to this for so long. My best friend, Michelle, who's actually here today, calls my trips to New Orleans my personal Super Bowls, and she's right. I love it here so much. I also convinced that calories don't count here, so bring on the red beans and the gumbo. Do not count them while you're here. Calories start again on Monday or Tuesday. But in all seriousness, New Orleans is what I call my heart city. I didn't grow up here, nor is my family connected to this place, but for the very first time, I flew into the old airport, about the old airport, and got into a cab, okay, and rode into town, got off I-10. I just felt it. It was the music, it's the culture, it's the food, it's the people. Obviously, the most Africanized city, right, in the Western Hemisphere, and I just felt home. And it was actually, unfortunately, I only know a post-Katrina New Orleans, unfortunately. So when I first came here, it was a few months after Katrina, and I could actually still see the water lines on all of the buildings. And it was clear how much had been lost, but also how much remained, right? And I have been back many, 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 many times since then, as some of my friends in the room can attest. And I've seen the resilience of this place and its people. And I know it's the perfect spot to celebrate our resilience as Black women. The love and the joy in community that itself is an act of resistance and reclamation. And that tenacity really runs deep in my blood, and Fatima knows this story. My great-grandmother was a tough, cigar-smoking Black woman in the early 20th century in low country South Carolina, who went from being a sharecropper to a landowner in her lifetime. My grandmother left low country in the Great Migration, headed north with her husband, and at the time, 3 children, so she could raise her family in Brooklyn, free from racial violence, and give them greater opportunities. And she later had my uncle and my mom, the baby, while they're in New York. And my mom clearly inherited their persistence and determination because she worked full-time through college while pregnant with me in her last year, and graduated with a 4-month-old in tow. And so I'm proud to really honor the legacy of those women in my life and through the work at the National Women's Law Center that I do there, where I'm loving and fighting for a better future for my own 2 daughters and for all of our daughters. I saw some little baby girls come in here just a minute ago. And for a society that values and invests in childcare, hello, and gives families the support they deserve, for safe and inclusive schools where my girls and yours can learn and grow free from violence and discrimination, for a country where they have more rights than I did, not fewer, when it comes to their own bodies and their own health choices. I want for you what I want for them. And more than anything, I want y'all to know this and hear me when I say this. You are not alone, okay? I see you, I see how hard it is, and I know how hard it is to be a woman, but especially a Black woman, when extremists want to steal our joy and deny our dignity. And I see how many folks are holding their breath, right? Like waiting for the next emergency that they can't afford, waiting for the next care crisis where they don't have a safety net to weather, or the next legal decision that puts our lives in jeopardy. It's all so much harder and scarier because of how isolating those things can be, right? You're sometimes hearing the news and you feel like you're screaming into the void, like what can you do? But again, I just want to remind you, you're not alone. People who you may not ever know and you never met have your back. The ancestors who sacrificed for you and gave you generational strength, the allies across our community who are building systems of support, and organizations like the National Women's Law Center and others represented here today. Planned Parenthood is here. There's a few other orgs that are fighting like hell to fix what is broken and make something better and keep us all well. So to that, I'd like to welcome our fantastic panelists to come up here and join me and in one of the soft seats up here. So first, I'm sorry, I'm flipping the page. I want to first invite Fatima Goss Graves, the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, to sit there. And then I would like to welcome, I'm not gonna do it, y'all. I was really tempted to burst into song. Fatima told me I couldn't sing. But I would like to welcome Grammy Award-winning singer and actress and advocate, LeToya Luckett. Yay! Look at this suit, come on, suit. Next, please, Kwajelyn Jackson, the Executive Director of the Feminist Women's Health Center. And last but certainly not least, the phenomenal Dr. Serina Floyd, who's the Chief Medical Officer of Planned Parenthood of Metropolitan, Washington. Ladies, okay, so you each have a mic? They're all working? Okay, amen. So I'm gonna probably stand a little bit because, you know, we're gonna get into it and I need to keep my feet on the ground when we do that. So first question to you, Fatima. The theme of this year's 30th anniversary of the Essence Festival, as you all know we're celebrating, is We Love Us. And we're here to celebrate reproductive freedom leaders in the gender justice movement, as you are also one yourself. So the first question is, how can Black women show up for ourselves, prioritize and practice wellness, and love ourselves and each other in a landscape where our reproductive rights and our overall bodily autonomy are constantly under attack?
Well, that seems easy. Well, first of all, I just love looking around this room, and I didn't even realize how many old friends and new friends have come in. So that's one way, right? Showing up in spaces like this where you can sort of see each other, look at each other, and just take some time and have uninterrupted time and space with Black women. Like, that is restorative to me in a very special way. But I have to say, I have a practice, and I don't know, there's probably a name for it. People talk about the thinking about the long arc, but of on purpose reminding myself that hard times did not begin with the time that I'm in. And really thinking about those who came before me, naming their names, talking about my grandmother, whose name you all don't know, but Nina Goss and Blanche Goings, but also talking about folks like Fanny, who did early work on forced sterilization, or talking about, this is the 30th anniversary of the founding of the reproductive justice movement and what it looked like for them to gather and name 30 years ago. So there's something about looking back that helps make you a little bit shoulders back and stronger as you look ahead. And I'm gonna say all that and also say it's really tough out there. It just is. It just is. And so I actually think when things are really tough out there, the thing that has given me the most steadiness is knowing that I have a part to play, right? And, we can talk about it more. You all have a part to play too. Yeah. But, at the Law Center, any step we are taking that is either protecting people in this moment or pushing back against the out-of-control zealots who have decided that they're going to design our future, they haven't yet won. And so I actually believe being a part of it in ways that are big and small, that too is restorative. That is the sort of, my team knows, like, people ask you, how do you do self-care? I'm like, winning. Winning is the best self-care. It is like, it is amazing. It fuels me. I'm like a rocket afterwards. But also just being in motion is a part of it for me.
Thank you. I want to actually now turn to Kwajelyn, because I think I'd be remiss if we don't, just say the thing, which is that, we're in Louisiana, and you came here from Georgia. And those are two states that are actively attacking the reproductive freedom of women here and there. There is this narrative about the South. I know you've heard it, and we have other Southerners on the panel. I know LeToya is from Texas. That sometimes overshadows, I think, all the amazing work that actually is happening in the South and by advocates like yourself. So is there work that you're able to share, or either from your own organization or from just across the South, more broadly, that highlights how folks are providing care and fighting back, and perhaps even creating like a model, right, for other parts of this country who are also being impacted by these barriers that are going up?
Sure, thank you. Yes, I work in Atlanta. Feminist Women's Health Center is an independent abortion provider that also does comprehensive gynecological care, gender-affirming care, outreach, advocacy, education, public policy, civic engagement, movement building across the South. And despite all of the attempts otherwise, we are still providing abortion care in Georgia. On today. Like literally on today. I think one of the big things that I try to dispel, because I know that as we were fighting against these attacks on abortion across the country, there was a lot of narrative around how a 6-week ban is basically a total ban. I understand the sentiment beyond that underwrites that, this idea that so many people are being denied care that they need, deserve, want, and should have access to where they live. But a 6-week ban is not a total ban. And so we are still providing thousands of abortions every day, not just to people who live in Georgia, but people who are coming from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Kentucky, Oklahoma. People are traveling all around the country. And what is heartbreaking is sometimes when they travel to Atlanta to get that care, they find out that they're too late and they have to travel again. They have to make a whole new plan. They have to reorganize their lives. They have to fundraise more. They have to figure out who's going to keep their other kids. Mm-hmm. They have to figure out how they're going to take off time from work. They have to figure out who's going to go with them. Should I go someplace I can drive? Should I go someplace I can fly? Should I get on a bus? Should I go where my cousin lives? My cousin lives in Seattle. Maybe I'll fly out there. But I could get an appointment more quickly in Washington, D.C. So all of those calculations are happening within people's lives in a single moment. I think to your point, what I want people to know is to not count the South out. The South and the Midwest, where there are many states that have lost access to abortion, but they have not lost the power within the people who live there.
Come on.
They have not lost advocacy. They have not lost people who have dedicated their lives to this work, who are continuing to try to make a way for folks to navigate this complicated hodgepodge system to get people to the care that they deserve. And so what I would encourage folks to do is, while we are also trying to invest in the places where abortion is protected, like Washington, D.C., and other parts of the country, that we also invest in those places where the soil is still the rockiest, because they need somebody to come and turn that over, because we know that this is not the end of the story. Regardless about what happens in November, it's not the end of the story. There's many more chapters that are going to come behind that. And so being able to continue to dig in and build power, because abortion should be accessible where people live.
I think that's a clap. That was an applause line, in case y'all missed that. So on this very thread, I actually want to go right over to you, Dr. Floyd, because obviously, as Kwajelyn just said, you're Chief Medical Officer, Planned Parenthood of Metropolitan Washington. So you really have like a very first-hand look into how the fall of Roe v. Wade, which is the Supreme Court precedent, 50 years, that was overturned 2 years ago. Sorry. And so my question is, as Kwajelyn said, in DC, abortion access is largely protected. But what unique challenges and opportunities are you encountering every day in your work when you're treating patients who do travel from other states where there are bans? And how can we better support these patients while advocating for broader reproductive justice?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel today. So I think one of the things I want to point out is, and I was having this conversation recently with a colleague, is that we talk about abortion being protected and in DC in particular, but in actuality it's not protected, right? Like, it's still accessible, it's still available. We can still provide abortion, but because DC is not a state, DC is under the control of U.S. Congress, and so the laws of DC are reviewed by Congress, and Congress can overturn or implement laws at its will. And so we are constantly aware of and paying attention to, and it fuels the fight for DC statehood, because we realize that our position is actually fairly tenuous. Fortunately, though, we're on the border of Maryland, which is protected, and we have health centers there as well. So, as a health center that does still have access, we are seeing patients also from all over the country. Our patients on average are traveling about 400 miles to be able to come to get to us, and particularly since the 6-week ban went into effect in Florida, we've seen a really sharp increase in the number of patients coming from Florida. In the month of May, the ban went into effect on May 1st. In the month of May, we saw more patients from Florida than we had for the previous 8 months combined. And that's what it's doing, right? And when you think about it, when you think about Florida having a 6-week ban, and Georgia having a 6-week ban, and South Carolina having a 6-week ban, and North Carolina having a 12-week ban, it just keeps pushing patients further and further, which means that it is increasing the number of barriers and really making it that much more challenging for them to navigate getting to the care that they need. It's, for me, it really drives home the point of what this looks like when you can relate a patient's story. And I took care of a patient probably about 6 or 7 months ago, who actually was from right here in New Orleans. And this was a patient who was experiencing homelessness here, but who was able to find a way to connect with one of the many abortion funds that are out there. And through the work of that fund and our patient navigator who we have on site, we were able to get that patient into DC. Patient came in the night before the procedure. She was in the second trimester, so came in the night before. We were able to see her. I did her procedure the next day, and then she was staying one additional night before she was traveling back here to New Orleans. And when I was done with her procedure, she had tears in her eyes, and she came and she said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Absolutely." And she says, "I cannot tell you how life-saving this was for me, because I am not in a position to be able to have a child and take care of a child. I don't even have a home. I am excited that I got to stay in a hotel last night, and that I get to stay in a hotel again tonight before I get on a plane and go back to New Orleans, where I'll go back to being, being homeless," is how she defined it. So that's what it looks like. And I could tell the stories over and over, and I'm sure, Kwajelyn can too, about what it looks like for folks trying to navigate to get to us for care. And we are trying to do as much as we can to accommodate as many people as we can. We have had to seriously rethink everything about how we do things, from our staffing models to our schedules to our policies and protocols that potentially are putting up barriers that we didn't realize were barriers until we sat down and thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? That doesn't make sense, and we're making it that much harder for a patient to get in to see us. So we had to really rethink how we were doing things overall, even down to our physical space, so we can really try to work to accommodate as many people as possible. And so I think, that's what it looks like. I think in terms of support, I will always advocate for support of the abortion funds, because in this climate that we're in, they are a lifeline. Like, I cannot emphasize enough. They are truly a lifeline for patients to get to where they need to get. And, everybody kind of gets caught up in like the rage giving, and there's like these swells of times when there's a lot of giving, and then that kind of tapers off. And those funds feel it. But the patient need doesn't taper off. That patient need continues. It grows. And so supporting those funds is a huge way that you can make a difference.
Thank you for making that point, Dr. Floyd. And as I think about, we talk about reproductive freedom, reproductive health is really an entire spectrum, right? We're talking about pregnancy, we're talking about abortion, we're talking about birth, and we're talking about postpartum, right? It's a range. And LeToya, this is why one of the reasons why I was so excited to be able to invite you and that you were able to join us, because, Dr. Floyd talked about this really powerful story she just shared. And as a storyteller, right, this is what gets me very excited, is people kind of sharing their stories. And so I think about patient care, you were so brave, really, I think, to share with the world that in 2015 you experienced a miscarriage and during a pregnancy that you desperately wanted. And you were so open about it. It was on TV. I was saying to Olympia, I think it was Family Hustle. You were talking about this on TV. And then you also shared that in I think maybe a following pregnancy, that you had some signs of early labor and you had to kind of go into and be seen, and sort of the anxiety and the fear and the loneliness that you felt with that. And I just want to pause there and say thank you, because I don't know if you know how many sisters you probably helped save just in sharing that and the loneliness that can come along with that sort of experience. And then in a pivot, right, beautifully, in Essence magazine, actually, you shared that you had a doula with another pregnancy and how that impacted your experience. So you had some very distinct pregnancy experiences, and those are just the ones that you've been willing to share with us, right? Because as women, we all know our reproductive health is complicated, right? And we all have different stories. And so I just was wondering if you can just talk to us a little bit about why having experts and different kinds of support care and medical care and non-medical care, but especially practitioners like Black doulas, are critical to Black maternal health care and how those shaped your motherhood experience.
Wow.
I listen. I did my research, okay?
Excuse me. I was like, whoa, I was feeling so many emotions in that moment, but wow. Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be up here to even share again. Thank you for this opportunity because, like you said, I didn't know I was doing it at the time, with just, expressing what was really going on with me in the moment and my fear that I was feeling. It was very, very real. But you don't realize when you're in those moments that there's somebody watching that has the exact same story as you, or has that exact same fear, or that feeling in their tummy where they just don't know what to do with those emotions or how to handle it. And yeah, that was a lot, so excuse me for the pause. Emotionally, whoa. Okay, so here we are. I've had a roller coaster of emotions and dealing with both of my pregnancies. Even before that, as she mentioned, with the miscarriage that I had, that was unexpected. Thought everything was great, and was excited to go and hear the heartbeat that, again, because I'd already heard it once, and fell in love in that moment, and didn't get the chance to hear it on that second visit. And I didn't really know my options, because we're excited about the moment, we're excited about the opportunity to finally be a mom, and then boom. And thank God I have such an amazing family, an amazing doctor, that even in that moment, when I needed the hug, when I needed someone to give me that reassurance that everything was gonna be okay, I had that, but every woman does not. That's right. And so that's why I was like, when the production staff on our show at the time asked me, would I be okay with sharing? I was like, I have to. This is me giving that hug back. I don't know how it's gonna come out. I might cry the entire time, but if this is gonna help and if it's okay, then fine. And I think because of that experience, once I did get pregnant with Gianna, and I did have that moment, the big scare of having early contractions. I didn't know what it was. I got on Google, And Google can sometimes, when you read that, it's like, okay, am I dying? What's happening? It's like, they have the extremes on there. And I was like, okay, all I know is I need to get in to see a doctor right now because what I'm feeling it can't be normal. And immediately, I didn't even have to say anything. When I arrived at the welcome desk, they were like, you're in early labor. They could see it in my face. I was having real contractions. It turned out, thank God, after they did a few exams, that Gianna was just standing on her head, and I was having irritated uterus. Is that what it's called? It's like irritated, yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Floyd, is that what it's called? Irritated uterus?
It's called irritated uterus. And honestly, I promise y'all, the doctor came in at the moment, she said just like this, and she said, I'm gonna tell you. I said, oh, this can't be good. She said, we don't see this a lot, but there isn't a real name for it yet, but we're calling it irritated uterus. I said, well, how do we un-irritate? How do we de-irritate her down? Because, baby, she is upset. And I just need that not to be the case. And she also said, in that moment, because I was so early, that, if things went left, that I would have to say my goodbyes. Because I wasn't whoa, okay.
It's okay, sis. It's okay.
She's 5. I'm fine. Yeah. She's here. Yeah. But yeah, I still feel it. It's a real thing. And honestly, I was in the room by myself at that time. So it was just me and the doctor at the time, and I didn't have anybody else besides her. So thank you. If there are any amazing doctors in the room, thank you, especially to the good ones, because you don't know how much we need you in those moments. Whew, okay, I need to get off that. But thankfully, Gianna calmed down. She's 5, so she's back up again. She's lit, full on. But from that experience, I said, no, I need a professional in the room advocating for me at all times. And that's when I got a doula. And she was amazing. Oh, my gosh. She became my best friend. My best friend. She checked on me more than anybody. She came over to the house and we would walk through certain things, and she would prepare me mentally and physically for my actual going into labor and everything. So I had her for both. I was blessed enough to have her for both Gianna and Tyson. Surprise number 2. Found out I was pregnant in the pandemic. We knew it, obviously. They weren't allowing spouses to be, at one point, if you had a husband, he couldn't be in there with you. So I was not only going through the pandemic moment and afraid like the rest of the world and having all of these different emotions and having to go to doctor's visits by myself, but I was also having the fear of, I hope they lift whatever this ban is so that I'm not in there by myself, but also more importantly, my doula got to be there. Not just husband at the time, but I need her in there with me because she made my experience amazing. I don't think I would have gotten through it the way I did if she wasn't there with me. And so I was able to have her there with me, and that was a blessing. I will share something that I haven't shared with anybody. I had another miscarriage under the new law, and I live in Houston. And there was a point where they didn't know, which direction it was going to go in. And the doctor said to me, listen, these are your options. If it goes left, I don't mind if it might be too much information. If the baby doesn't pass all the way by itself, there's nothing we can do here. And you hear things on the news. You read things on Instagram and paper, but when it's you, oh, baby, it hits different. And I said to her, okay, wait a minute. So if something happens and, I need to get a DNC or something like that, she's like, absolutely not. I said, at that moment, it wasn't about me. I started thinking about the women that couldn't catch a flight. And I said, but what if she can't afford a ticket? She said, you don't know the number of women that we lose every day because of this. they don't have nobody and they don't have anything and they have nowhere to go and they can't take the drive. They don't have the gas money. They can't catch the flight. So I wasn't even scared for myself in that moment. I started to think about every woman that doesn't have it. And forget what I'm going through, what is she mentally having to go through? She is faced with death if things don't go right. And it made me want to advocate and do whatever I possibly could to remove whatever law and go stand in whoever's office and scream at the mountaintop. If I could vote 1,000,000 times, I would, because it became real for me. It wasn't just a panel of very educated women sitting up here and saying possibilities. It was my reality. And we need more of this. I believe God sends us through different experiences so that we can share our testimonies and share that there is light at the other end of the tunnel. And then sometimes, hey, sis, you're not alone in this. We need more of this because there are so many women that are voting on the other side, that probably have the resources, that, this is just a thing to them. This is just a maybe. When it's a real life thing that we are having to deal with every single day. And I haven't shared that with anybody. I hope we're in the trust tree. Hope this is a safe space. But when you guys were sharing all of this information, I was sitting here getting triggered because I was like, I was the woman Googling where I needed to fly, who was going to be available to having those hard conversations. That was me. So I wanted to say, I'm kind of the poster child for everything y'all have shared in these last few minutes. And I cannot thank you enough for the work that you're doing. I can't thank you for advocating for perfect strangers. And it's almost healing me. It's helping me on my healing journey. I'm still trying to heal from 2015.
Of course.
So thank you for allowing me to be in this room with y'all.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So Fatima, I want to, LeToya really gave us the perfect sort of segue here. So I really do want you, and as brilliantly as you can, give folks just a sense of really what the landscape is, right? The sort of the relationship between abortion rights and maternal health care, because those are, interconnected issues. So would you mind doing that for us, kind of walking us through that?
And LeToya, I got it.
Okay, cool.
What a gift, sis. Thank you for putting us in the trust tree.
Yes.
And beyond, and for feeling it in your bones. It's always personal, though, right? So, I think about the 21 states that right now have either deeply restricted or totally banned abortion. And when we think about what that looks on the ground, and I think from the three of you, you've heard sort of different perspectives. And if I could just take it up just one more level, even before Dobbs, there was already a giant and horrific maternal mortality crisis in this country that for Black and Indigenous women was absolutely startling. And if we were a country on the right track, we would just be focused there, right? You would just sort of say, that is just our focus. And so what has happened is the power of making something illegal has created a lot of fear among providers. So you have providers, and maybe their lawyers, telling them, listen, if something happens, I'm not going to be able to help you. I can help you leave our state, but that doesn't feel like real help in real time. You have people afraid to go to doctors because they don't know if they're going to rat them out. So if something is wrong, many one in three women during their pregnancy go to the emergency room because they think, or maybe something is wrong. But now with risk around going and checking in, that risk means people aren't going. So you have that extra hurdle where you have politicians and laws in between, which should be a very different relationship. And all of that is before you even get to the fact that many of the same states that have put up these bans, that have criminalized doctors and patients and anybody who loves or helps them, they are also the states that aren't doing things like having paid leave, right? Having
Universal
deep
pre-K.
investments in childcare, in
Expanding Medicaid.
making it more possible to have healthy parenting. And so it is a crisis, right? And I'm so appreciated that you lifted up doulas and the power of doulas and the power of community care and there are a range of measures that have been in place. And, again, if we were all focused on where we should be focused, I think about, the vice president had been leading a whole initiative around maternal health. I'm guessing a lot of people, that's just where they would want to spend their time. And also now we have to protect people who are now in harm's way because of what can only be described as state-sanctioned violence against pregnant people in this country.
Did you want to? Sorry, you lifted up the mic. Go ahead, Kwajelyn.
Well, I was just going to add, everything that Fatima said, plus there are young medical students, nursing students, who are having to make decisions now about where they want to practice, where they want to study, because they know that they will not be able to treat their patients within the full scope of their expertise because they might be threatened with jail time, with civil lawsuits, with losing their medical licenses. And so all of this also affects people with planned, wanted, deeply desired pregnancies who will not have access to reproductive health care providers. We might lose a generation of reproductive health care providers across these states because they don't feel safe enough to practice there.
That's right.
Okay. So I just had to pause there because I'm having my own memories of my own pregnancy emergencies. I'm sorry. Okay, I want to ask each of you as we, thank you. I want to ask each, I'm sorry. Okay, and to your point, now she's 2.5.
Get her
she's
to
fine.
Right.
She's okay. She's okay.
But it's trauma.
And tearing our house up every moment of the day, and she's perfectly fine. Thank you. Okay, so I would love to ask each of you, strategy, right? There are a lot of brilliant people in this room who each of you should know you have a ton of power within you in the where and when you enter to help us mobilize and organize around protecting women, patients, families. So I'm going to start with Fatima, and I want to kind of go down because you each approach this from a different set of experiences and expertise. So what strategies do you recommend, Fatima, for Black women to effectively navigate and resist the systemic barriers in both maternal health and abortion access, while also maintaining their physical and mental well-being, as we're talking about?
Well, some of it, I want people to think about what their role is in this time, because you don't all have to do the same thing. And I actually think on here we demonstrate that. For some folks, I think about them as the disruptors. Like, your role is in the streets, you were turning tables, you were showing up at people's offices, you were the one, that's great. That is your role, and we need you. For some folks, that's not their role, and they're like, no, thank you, I need to work within the boundaries, and so some of what you might be doing, for example, is protecting people, helping people get where they need to go. At the Law Center, we joined with other legal organizations to launch an abortion defense network. And we have a fund for patients and providers and helpers who find themselves in legal trouble. That is a part of protecting people in this time. That is acknowledging people are in harm's way and trying to protect them. But some of us are going to be dreaming for a time that's not today. Right? You're going to be fighting not just to get us back to what was probably a terrible status quo, but you want to dream ahead, like the artists in you. You've already imagined the future that we want. You've painted the picture, and you're just building it. We need, whatever it is that is your superpower, that's what we need you to bring to this fight right now. And there will be other people waiting to greet you, enjoy with you, and make that more powerful. So, we at the Law Center, we do legal work and policy advocacy and culture work. But honestly, that's a lane. And it is an important lane, I think. But it's one lane. And I also just have to say, also, the funds. Right, everyone has to, the thing about abortion funds is there's one in your community that you can support, and it's a way to be introduced to being a part of this work and movement too.
LeToya, you have a phenomenal platform, obviously, and you've been blessing us with your gifts for years. What is one strategy you think that you could employ to the movement?
I mean, I feel like sharing my stories as I already have, and realizing, hey, I do have a voice, not just to sing with, not just to use when I'm acting, but this is what really matters. And especially with being a mom, especially having a daughter, using my voice to advocate for her future is important. It's key. And also, I think there's so many women in my industry that have huge platforms and influence. And I think we are so focused on making sure that we have clean-cut brands, and and we're all trying to be perfect patties, if you will. Some of us don't care.
Oh, is LeToya Luckett one who doesn't care? Not there yet. Okay.
Oh, I care. I want to, my mom taught me to be classy and to keep everybody don't need to know your business, but I feel on topics like this, it is necessary. It is so necessary. And I feel like there are so many women in my industry who have been through the exact same thing, but are scared. They're terrified to come out and share and tell their stories, and they don't realize how much of a difference they could make with just using their voice. Getting on their platform. I don't care if it's just simply one day saying, hey, I'm having a hard day and this is why. I'm having a real life moment. I'm going through something a lady out there is probably going through. They don't understand how that could affect somebody, how it could change somebody's life, how it could save someone's life. So I feel like the more, speaking about the women in my industry, and honestly, not just the women in my industry, but if you have influence, if you have an ear, if you have ears that will listen to you, and you're not afraid to speak up about your situations and be able to advocate for, our children's future, or just for yourself, and to go out, especially in November, and vote and make a real change, and not feel like, oh, I'll just sit at home and let it, it won't affect me. No, ma'am. Oh, it will. It's getting closer to home, if you guys can't tell. So I feel like the more we use our influence and realize that our voice does matter, that we'll see change. So I'm just going to continue to use my voice.
And thank you for that. Kwajelyn?
I would definitely want to echo what both of you all have shared, but the thing that I'll lift up is, while I know that the federal level politics often take up so much of our attention, I do not want us to neglect the local and state decision makers. Every one of these huge Supreme Court cases started at a state legislature. Started with typically a plaintiff that is a local clinic. And so thinking about what's happening where you live, whether you are local to Louisiana or from other parts of the country, remembering that there are people there at every level of government who are making decisions that affect your everyday walking around life. And we have so much more access and influence over our local politicians than we do over Congress and the White House. Your state representative might go to your church. Your city council member might send their kids to the same little league that you send yours to. Your county commissioner, might go shop at the same grocery store as you. And so those people, their voicemails are not full. They are winning by a couple hundred votes. They are often running unopposed. And so being able to not only vote and advocate for the people who are making the change that you want to see, but also considering whether you want to step into power and you want to lift your voice into the ring to be able to bring the issues forward, being able to advocate throughout the year, not just on election day, because they need to hear from you frequently. They need feedback. You are their boss. You need to give them an evaluation on a regular basis, not just when it's time to hire and fire, all year long. So that's be my encouragement, is to really dig in locally, find a political home, and that doesn't just mean a political party, but an organization, a collective of people who are working on the thing that you care about the most, whether it's reproductive justice or something else, who can help to sharpen the tip of your arrow so that you can be effective and potent in your advocacy.
Dr. Floyd?
It's hard to be the one to go last after with this question, because again, a lot of what has been said now are exactly some of the same things that come to mind, front of mind for me. I think with the storytelling, it's really powerful because it brings the issue to a much different level than when people are just thinking broadly, kind of generally about it. But the other thing it does is it reduces stigma. Stigma is dangerous, right? Stigma is what causes people to not have conversations. Stigma causes people to not get the health care that they know they probably should get and they definitely need to get because they're afraid of how that's going to appear. So the storytelling is really important. And just as folks up here have shared stories, if you're able to share your story, if you're comfortable enough to share your story, again, the more people that share stories, the more we normalize what we know is normal health care, right? The other thing I wanted to say is becoming educated and of yourself about what the issues are, and in particular, exactly to the point you were saying, become educated about what are the how have those who you are have an opportunity to vote into office, how have they been doing along those same lines, right? So as much as you can, gaining the knowledge, gathering the knowledge, whether it's about which direction you should be voting, or whether it's about, let me figure out what are the laws in this state, where can I help someone I know be able to get access? How can I support, right? That's a small level something that you can do. It's just to be able to support someone who may need you, who you may not even know need you, but this is where the storytelling comes in, because you become relatable, and you become a safe space. And when folks do find themselves in a crisis or find themselves in need, they already have identified you as someone who can support them, and be there, be there to support them. Whether it's a hand that you're just holding, whether it's taking them to the airport, whether it's taking them to a doctor's office, whatever it is that they may need is really important, because again, those are the kinds of things that can also be life-saving. Having that one person who can make a difference because their presence was what you needed in that moment.
Thank you so much. And you all actually gave a perfect segue for our next speaker, who's just going to come and give us some words of encouragement about voting this year. So Dewana Thompson, the founder of Vote, if you would just come and give us a little minute or two of how important this year is.
I feel like they've already given my message for me, especially LeToya. I was like, she's stealing all my thunder. But it truly is an honor to be here in this conversation, because a lot of times, as someone who has not had the opportunity to have a child yet, and talking to some of my peers who haven't gone through some of the issues that I think when people think about this topic, they think that's a mommy issue and not a woman's issue or a person's issue. And so we tend to leave power on the table where we could be advocating for each other and advocating in a community around a set of issues because we don't see ourselves reflected as much as another person in the situation, right? And so I always, it's just the same that we say with any issue, any kitchen table issue. It may not be on your table yet, but it could be on your mama table, on your sister table, on the next door neighbor table. So we all better get activated around the table, right? And this year, you know, I've really been concerned about the full attack on truth. Just the full attack on truth. Because if we were telling the truth, and if we were hearing the truth, and if the truth was being propagated the way it should, I wouldn't be worried about November. And you wouldn't either, because we would be able to look at what's going on with clear eyes and clear perspectives. And I believe enough in the people that we would make the right decisions. But the truth is being attacked. And so we have to be truth tellers in this moment. And sometimes you have to tell the truth in moments where it is the truth also that things are happening to you and you are being attacked by those who you thought were on your side. And so it is a rough moment to be a truth teller, but it is a necessary moment right now in this election. Please do not check out. Please make sure that you're having conversations with individuals who are already checked out, and for good reason for many of them. I keep telling people, do not demonize and weaponize people because they are checked out or because they are looking at different choices. We have a responsibility to bring them over to the other side, however we need to do it. Not to the Democratic or the Republican side, but to the side of saving ourselves. And whatever that strategy has to be in November. And I say that there has to be two tracks of people, two tracks that's happening. There has to be those of us who have to deal with the current context of what's going on in our country, and those of us who are thinking about what's possible outside of this current context. We need breakers and builders at the same time. Breakers and builders at the same time. So if you're a breaker, break on. I'm not going to fight back. If you feel like you got to cuss everybody out, do what you got to do. For those of us who got to build to get us over the bridge, to get us to a place where we can have a wonderful imagination about something, and not just an imagination, but a true way of something being different, let's do the work. So thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of this conversation. Please see us afterwards if you want to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tawana. Phenomenal, phenomenal leader in Alabama, okay? She knows of what she speaks. And there are QR codes, right, Katina, Tawana, around the room, on flyers, on the bar, there's a big sign over there if you want to get more information on Woke Vote. Last thought to the phenomenal women up here sitting next to me, I'm standing. I would love to get one sentence, I don't know if y'all can do it, one sentence about something that is giving you hope right now and hope for the future in this movement. Dr. Floyd.
I actually would say one word, and that is resilience. That is the word that defines us as a people from the very beginning of time. And that is what I constantly think about, and what keeps me going is that I know that we are extremely resilient, and no matter what they throw at us, we are always ready. We are fighting. We are never giving up. We are never backing down. And so that is my word.
Kwajelyn. One sentence or one word, since Dr. Floyd get a word.
It ain't gonna be one word. People have heard me say this before, but I'm gonna say it to you all again, is that oftentimes we are motivated by fear and rage, and those are righteous and necessary, but rage is like lighter fluid, in that it will ignite you, but it will burn off quick. And so optimism, hope, and radical imagination are the things that will fuel us past this moment. You can't heat your house with lighter fluid. You need something that's gonna burn long and low and slow. And so that, to me, is like being able to vision that radical imagination of what is possible beyond all of this sloth and mess, and practicing that on a regular basis to see, okay, what can I do today that's gonna get me an inch closer to that liberated future that I'm working towards?
Okay, LeToya. One word or one sentence, something's giving you hope for the future.
Activation. I feel like we talk about things, but a lot of times there's no movement. We'll have great conversations like this, but it'll stay in the room. I feel like the more we have movement on things and people are out, boots on the ground, doing the work that needs to be done, activation, getting things going, that's what creates the change. And yeah, that's my little word.
And last but not least, Fatima.
Well, this conversation, for 100%, has given me a lot of hope. But I will just say the last week or so, I've been thinking about the clarity of Black women in this time, the sort of like dust yourself off, get to work, get it done. And that gives me a giant boost. That spirit of get it done and staying in motion is giving me a lot of hope, because that's what it's going to take.
Okay. Thank you all. Please give another round of applause for our amazing panel. Dr. Serina Floyd, Kwajelyn Jackson, the legendary LeToya Luckett, and Fatima Goss, the National Women's Law Center. We are going to reopen the bar and keep the party going, but I wanted to just acknowledge, we had some friends come in the room and I wanted to say their names, but I can't see them now. I thought I saw Joy Cheney. Okay, yes, I see Ebony Baylor. Oh, talk about our reproductive justice. I'm sorry, who did you?
Rachel Nix.
Oh, Rachel Nix. Rachel! And then I thought I saw Monica Ray Simpson. Did Monica Ray Simpson bring herself in here? Monica Ray Simpson, okay, executive director of Sister Song, okay, doing amazing work in the South also and everywhere. Oh, and Amanda! You snuck in here, Amanda Brown-Learman. No, formerly of Supermajority, now helping us in other ways and spaces, also a phenomenal girl mom. The girl moms have to hold it down. Anyway, to all of you who have joined us today, thank you so, so very much. If you are looking for more information on the National Women's Law Center, Lark, who is on my amazing social media team, can direct you to all the things. You already met her. We walked in. And like I said earlier, Arvia is here, our director of campaigns. Olympia is here, our director of public relations. We're happy to talk to you about the phenomenal work that we are doing at the Law Center and the Law Center Action Fund. Okay, I said that. All right, enjoy. Thank you. Happy Essence. Be safe. Hydrate. And we'll see you all later.